resources. Resources are fascinating because lots of things. That's a resource. You hear it banging around back here. It's a bottle of water. It's not tied down. But resources are interesting because lots of things you don't think of as resources are resources. For instance, geography. I was born in a wealthy area, northeastern United States, northeastern part of Massachusetts, very wealthy. I didn't realize quite how wealthy until I started going other places and really looking at business from an adult's point of view. And I'm like, whoa, the sheer amount of wealth in New England is a tremendous resource. The same as various aspects of the culture in New England are a tremendous resource. That is driving me. That's driving me fucking crazy. I have to get that at some point. There's nowhere really to stop right now, though. So, sanity. Sanity is definitely a resource. Sanity is something we outsource to other people. Like, you can't be sane on your own. I'm just gonna pull over right here in the video while I get this water bottle. This is driving me up the fucking I'm just thinking the whole time, the next thing I'm gonna hear is this smashing. It's not even the water, it's the broken glass. I don't like picking up broken glass because it's another thing I have to do. There's all these things you gotta do. Now I gotta pick up broken glass in addition to that, and it's just not what I'm looking to do. So I completely forgot where I was, but politics is an emergent property of, YouTube, for instance, is an emergent property of the technology that's available. YouTube is really just this conjunction of things that are made possible via cell phones. I'd say pretty much cell phones. So, at least the smartphone variety. The same as cars by Henry Ford were a emergent property of their technology. People are also emergent properties because for people to so let's say you have New England. So you have the people of New England. There's a culture to the people of New England. There's all this stuff that goes into the New Englanding of New England. And out of New England arises certain kinds of people. Ralph Waldo Emerson was a New England thinker. I'm someone who arose in New England. I think that in some ways I could have only arisen in New England because I think that people are very much specific to their environment in that sort of way. People really do emerge, emergent properties out of the substrate of their people. You see this with fighters, fighters emerging out, Conor McGregor emerging out of Ireland. You see, artwork. I mean, the way artwork manifests is an emergent property, but I wouldn't say artwork is particularly an emergent property. Neither are people in a real sense, but the patterns that people follow are emergent properties. Archetypes are emergent properties. That's a really good way to think of it. An archetype is an emergent property. The ego is an emergent property of language and biology. That's fascinating. And archetypes are emergent properties of the interactions of other people. Given the standard ways in which human beings deviate, we self-categorize and group into behavioral types that are transcendent behavioral types, archetypes. And that's a really interesting phenomenon. And this property of psychological emergence. I would say like certain particular like the way mental illnesses manifest in our society is an emergent property. It's an emergent property of basically our biology, language, and the particular requirements of our culture, which are really that's part of language as well. That's really the way to think about it, is that language is inseparable from all other habituated patterns because it's ultimately governed by the syntactic part of our brain. So, resources. I don't know if I want to stay on topic, but mental focus, the ability to focus is the ultimate resource. Focus what? Focus anything. I mean, you have to be able to focus your body into movement in one direction to get anywhere, focus your thoughts, more like focus the resources of a community. Governments do that in a variety of ways. They provide a focal point for community resources, but they're not the most effective focal point because they can be hijacked by psychopaths very easily. There's people with short-term strategies. I mean, there's no difference between someone with a short-term strategy and a psychopath, because at the end of the day, if you have a proper understanding of yourself across time, you'll realize that you across time is dependent on other people across time. So you'll take care of those around you because you're dependent on them over time. Like, you can't, like, this is another way emergent properties happen. Like, people are emergent properties of their training environments for as far as athletes go. So you can't get better than the room you're in, which is why you should help everyone, like, basically give away, quote unquote, all of your secrets. A, because you don't really know why they work anyway or what your real secrets are. B, if you can tell someone what you're doing and then it makes it not work, you weren't really doing anything that profound to begin with. And then C, it's also primarily about self-defense. You want to understand combat. You want to develop tricks to, like, you're not trying to beat your training partner in order to establish dominance over your training partner. You're trying to beat your training partner to become effective at the principles that will allow you to establish dominance over anyone. And this includes, like, Eddie Hall. Like, I only train for Eddie Hall. I only train for The Mountain or Khabib. Like, why would you train for, like, someone else? That's, like, dumb. Like, I want to train so that I could beat The Mountain with a knife. This is, like, silliness. So, resourcefulness is the ultimate resource. I think that resourcefulness comes down to creativity. I don't think that the cultural zeitgeist is going to help you much in this domain, at least in its more mundane instantiated forms. I think that you should probably get your culture from books more so than the people around you, unless the people around you happen to be particularly open, honest, and of a discerning variety. Because ultimately, like, I've found that getting my culture, my mental understanding of the world from books is very useful. Like, talking to ordinary people about things, you get somewhere, but, like, for the most part, if you talk to them too much, you end up falling into their frame of manners, and it's just generally very ineffective, I've found. Because they lack resourcefulness, because they don't train that, and I mean, that's why they're still in the same position as they were the last time you talked to them, generally speaking. It's really important to constantly be trying to get resources and use resources to the best of your ability. Complacency in any form is punished by existence, punished out of existence, I should say. It's really not very helpful to adopt a mentality of, like, oh, if I'm just, like, I don't know. I think that ultimately what's very helpful for people And what's helpful for the world is when people really drive themselves to the maximum, trying to use and understand their resources. Like, warfare is a state of maximum resourcefulness. And when countries are forced into states of warfare, they remove petty restrictions on economy and industry and innovation because of this need for resourcefulness. And when people, I think it's necessary to have immediate need. There must always be this creation of the felt presence of immediate need, or else resourcefulness diminishes. Resourcefulness is no longer seen as necessary. And when resourcefulness is not seen as necessary, you stop exploring your environment and you stop trying to figure out what you can do. Like, children are very resourceful. Children will always figure out a resource because they're constantly exploring. But this gets conditioned out of us. Like, it's terrible, but it's like, I can't, like, I am in such an environment that I have to spend all of my time, or not all of my time, but I have to spend my time optimizing systems. Like, I'm still building systems for living. I'm not just chilling in paradise yet. But even when I'm chilling in paradise, because that's really, like, I want to create an environment where my children can practice maximum resourcefulness at all times. They're also young, very young, they're like 2 and 3, but the ability to practice resourcefulness is really what children excel at. And I had this idea that the purpose of a well-run society is to make it functional for children to just be let out into the world to run around, because children, I think the most creative human beings that exist. Like, they're just going around creating, and I think it'd be so cool to see like children in a world that was integrated for adults. Like, what if like all the 15, 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds just got together and built playgrounds for themselves? Like, what if they recruited the younger children, like the 6 and 7-year-olds, or like take care of the younger children? Like, I wonder what a society that had integrated children into it would look like, because I think that, I mean, it had to start at a familial level and extend through an extended family. It would look like an extended family, ultimately, with cousins and everyone kind of playing. But I'm like, what degree could you integrate the world? It's kind of an open question. Leave your thoughts down below if you choose to.